The coffee maker gurgled its familiar morning song at 6 a.m. sharp, same as it had for 35 years. Robert Mitchell's calloused hands moved through the ritual with practiced ease. 2 scoops for him, 1.5 for Sarah. No sugar for either of them anymore. Doctor's orders. Here you go, sweetheart, he said softly, setting the mug beside Sarah's rainbow array of pills. 7 different medications, each tiny tablet, a reminder that time wasn't on their side anymore. Sarah's hand trembled slightly as she reached for the coffee. Not much, but enough for Robert to notice. He always noticed. 35 years of marriage taught you to read the smallest signs. The way she paused before swallowing, the careful breaths she took between sips. You okay? He kept his voice casual, but his eyes tracked every movement. Just tired, honey. These new beta blockers, they make me feel like I'm moving through molasses. Sarah managed a smile, the kind that still made his chest tighten after all these years. Dr. Kim called yesterday, said we need to talk about timing. Robert's jaw tightened. The surgery? 2 years, he said. Maybe less if she didn't finish. Didn't need to. They both knew what if meant. If the medication stopped working, if her heart weakened faster than expected, if they couldn't come up with $200,000. Robert's eyes drifted to the kitchen table, where their bank statement lay open. 120,000 in savings. Their entire life's work reduced to a number that suddenly felt impossibly small. He'd run the math 100 times. Even if they sold everything, emptied the retirement account, took every penalty, they'd still be short by 80,000. We'll figure it out, he said, the same words he'd been saying for 6 months now. We always do. The laptop on the counter chimed. Incoming video call. Marcus. Their son's face filled the screen before Robert could properly prepare himself. Even through the pixelated connection, Robert could see the exhaustion carved into his boy's features. Red-rimmed eyes, stubble that had passed fashionable 3 days ago, and that forced smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Hey, Dad, Mom! Marcus's voice carried that brittle cheerfulness Robert recognized from when his son used to hide report cards in his backpack. How are you guys doing? We're good, son. Robert moved the laptop so Sarah could see better. You look tired. Everything okay at the company? Marcus's laugh came out sharp, almost bitter. Oh, everything's great. Fantastic, actually. We're at a critical juncture, you know. Make or break time for green tech. Behind Marcus, Robert could make out the sleek office, floor-to-ceiling windows, modern furniture that probably cost more than Robert made in a month back when he was working. But something was off. Boxes stacked in the corner, empty desks that should have had people at them, even at this early hour. Marcus, honey, are you eating? Sarah leaned forward, mother's intuition on high alert. You look thin. I'm fine, Mom, just busy. Actually, Marcus rubbed his face, and for a moment Robert saw the scared kid who used to climb into their bed during thunderstorms. Actually, I was wondering if I could come by today. There's something I need to discuss with you both. Robert exchanged glances with Sarah. In 30 years of raising Marcus, need to discuss had never meant anything good. Of course, son. You know you're always welcome. Thanks, Dad. I'll be there around noon. Marcus paused, seemed about to say something else, then just nodded. Love you both? The screen went dark. Sarah's hand found Robert's across the table. Something's wrong. I know, really wrong, Robert. I can feel it. Her fingers tightened around his. Remember when he was 16 and wrecked the car? He had that same look, like the world was ending and only we could fix it. Robert stood, walked to the wall where his certificates hung in neat frames. 35 years with Pacific Gas and Electric. Master electrician. Safety award after safety award. A lifetime of honest work. And what did he have to show for it? A sick wife, a savings account that couldn't save her, and a son whose success seemed to be crumbling before it even solidified. The doorbell rang at 11:47. Early. Marcus was never early unless he was desperate. Robert opened the door to find his son standing there, designer suit wrinkled, Tesla keys clutched in his hand like a lifeline. For a moment neither moved. Then Marcus stepped forward and wrapped his arms around his father. The kind of hug Robert hadn't gotten since Marcus left for Stanford 10 years ago. Dad! Marcus's voice cracked against Robert's shoulder. I need you. Robert held his son tighter, feeling the tremor running through the younger man's frame. I'm here, son. Marcus pulled back, eyes glassy with unshed tears. The company, Dad. Green Tech. We're 3 weeks from bankruptcy. The primary investor pulled out. The bank's calling in our loan. If we can't show proof of funding by month's end, we lose everything. The patents, the technology. 5 years of work gone. Sarah appeared in the doorway, one hand pressed to her chest, the other gripping the doorframe. Oh, Marcus. I know I have no right to ask, Marcus continued. words tumbling out faster now. I know you and Mom have your own situation, but Dad, I don't know where else to turn. Sophia says her father might invest, but only if we can show matching funds. I need... God, I can't believe I'm asking this. I need help. I need you to save my company. Robert looked at his son, really looked at him, saw the desperation, yes, but also something else. Pride. Marcus was drowning, but he was still too proud to say the words directly. Behind Marcus, Sarah caught Robert's eye. Her expression was unreadable, but her hand moved almost imperceptibly to her chest, right where her failing heart struggled with each beat. The morning sun cast long shadows across their small porch, and somewhere in the distance, a neighbor's lawnmower hummed to life. An ordinary Saturday morning in Oakland, but Robert felt the weight of the moment pressing down like a physical thing. Everything was about to change. Marcus set his laptop on the kitchen table with the reverence of a priest placing a Bible on an altar. His fingers danced across the keyboard, pulling up slide after slide of graphs, charts, and technical diagrams that made Robert's head spin just looking at them. Okay, so here's the thing, Dad, Marcus began, his voice shifting into what Robert recognized as his pitch mode, the one he'd practiced in front of the bathroom mirror as a teenager. Solar technology hasn't fundamentally changed in 20 years. We're still stuck at 22% efficiency, 24 on a good day. But green tech, we've cracked it. 47% efficiency, Dad. That's more than double what anyone else can do. Robert leaned forward, squinting at the screen. The numbers were impressive, sure, but he'd been around long enough to know that numbers on a screen and reality were often strangers to each other. How's that possible, son? I mean, I've worked with solar installations for PG&E. The physics, that's exactly why we can do it. Marcus's eyes lit up, that spark Robert hadn't seen in months. We're not fighting the physics, we're working with them. Look, he pulled up a 3D model that rotated slowly on screen. Traditional panels lose energy through heat dissipation and reflection. Our nanocoating actually captures that lost energy and cycles it back through a secondary collection layer. It's like, imagine if your car could capture the heat from its own engine and turn it back into fuel. Sarah set down her coffee cup carefully. That sounds wonderful, honey, but if it's so revolutionary, why is the company in trouble? Marcus's enthusiasm dimmed slightly. Because revolutionary costs money, Mom. We've got a working prototype, but to scale up for commercial production, to prove to investors this isn't just a lab experiment, we need a production run, just a small one, 500 units. But that takes capital we don't have anymore. How much? Robert asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. 120,000. That gets us the materials, the facility rental, the testing certification. Marcus ran his hand through his hair. I know it sounds like a lot. It sounds like exactly what we have in savings, Sarah said quietly. The room went silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. Marcus looked between his parents, and Robert could see the war playing out on his son's face, desperation battling with shame. I wouldn't ask if there was any other way, Marcus finally said. But Dad, Mom, this technology, it's not just about money. We could change everything. Bring clean energy to places that have never had reliable power. Cut carbon emissions by 30% globally if we scale right. This is the kind of thing you always talked about, Dad. Making a real difference. Before Robert could respond, the laptop chimed. Another video call coming through. Marcus glanced at the screen and his expression tightened. That's Sophia, my fiancée. She wanted to be part of this conversation, if that's okay. Robert nodded, though something in Marcus's tone made his installer's instincts prickle. That same feeling he got when a wire looked fine, but something told him to check it anyway. Sophia Chen appeared on screen like she'd been composed by a fashion photographer. Even through the laptop's mediocre camera, her presence dominated the frame. Sleek black hair pulled into a perfect bun, a cream-colored blouse that probably cost more than Robert's monthly pension, and a smile that never quite reached her dark eyes. Mr. and Mrs. Mitchell, she said, her voice carrying just a hint of an accent Robert couldn't place. It's so wonderful to finally meet you, even if it's through a screen. Marcus talks about you constantly. Does he now? Sarah's voice carried that polite coolness she reserved for door-to-door salespeople. Oh yes, especially about you, Mr. Mitchell. Your work ethic, your integrity. Marcus says you're the reason he pushed himself so hard. Sophia's smile widened a fraction. My father is actually very interested in meeting you. Alexander Chen? Perhaps Marcus mentioned him? Robert knew the name. Everyone in the Bay Area knew Alexander Chen. Venture capitalist, billionaire, the man who'd funded half the successful startups in Silicon Valley. Your father is Alexander Chen? Guilty as charged. Sophia laughed, a tinkling sound that seemed practiced. He's very interested in green tech's potential, but he has a rule. He only invests alongside committed partners. He says it ensures everyone has, how does he put it, skin in the game. Marcus jumped in quickly. Which is why if we can show we've raised matching funds independently, Chen Ventures would put in another 500,000. That would give us runway for 18 months, enough to get to profitability. The laptop chimed again. Another caller wanting to join. Marcus frowned at the screen. That's Dr. Volkov, our technical advisor. I didn't know she was. Accept it, Sophia said, and Robert caught the flash of irritation that crossed Marcus's face before he clicked accept. The screen split 3 ways, and Robert's blood went cold. The woman who appeared looked older, mid-40s maybe, with sharp Slavic features and pale blue eyes that seemed to look right through the camera and into Robert's soul. Her silver-streaked hair was pulled back severely, and when she smiled, it was the smile of someone who knew exactly what cards everyone was holding. Marcus, Sophia, she said, her Russian accent thick as winter honey, I apologize for the intrusion. I wanted to ensure our potential investors had all the information they needed. Her eyes fixed on Robert. Mr. Mitchell, your reputation precedes you. Robert kept his face neutral, but his hands clenched under the table. That voice, he knew that voice. Though it had been younger, laughing in a Nevada lab at 3 in the morning over failed experiments and too much coffee. I'm sorry, have we met? He managed to say. Elena Volkov tilted her head slightly. Perhaps not directly, but your work on distributed grid systems is quite well known in certain circles, particularly your contributions to. The words hit Robert like a physical blow. Project Sway, a classified energy project from 1995, so secret that even mentioning its name required clearance. How could she possibly? Sarah's hand suddenly gripped Robert's arm. Her breathing had changed, becoming shallow and quick. Robert, she whispered. Mom? Marcus leaned toward his mother, concern replacing his pitch enthusiasm. Mom, are you okay? Sarah's face had gone pale, one hand pressed to her chest. I need a moment. The stress of all this. Robert was already moving, grabbing Sarah's medication from the counter. Marcus, give us a minute. Of course, of course. Marcus slammed the laptop shut, cutting off both Sophia and Elena mid-sentence. Mom, should I call 911? No, Sarah gasped, accepting the pills Robert handed her. No hospitals, just give me a second. They sat in tense silence for 5 minutes, Robert counting Sarah's breaths, watching the color slowly return to her cheeks. Finally, she squeezed his hand. I'm okay. We don't have to do this, Robert said firmly. Marcus can find another way. No. Sarah's voice was stronger now. No, Robert, that boy needs us. I can see it in his eyes. He's drowning. She turned to Marcus. But that girl, that Sophia. There's something wrong there, honey. A mother knows. She looks at you like you're a ladder, not a person. Marcus's jaw tightened. Mom, you don't know her. She's been nothing but supportive. She's been nothing but calculating, Sarah interrupted. I've been watching people a lot longer than you have, son. That girl's got an agenda, and it's not about loving you. You're wrong, Marcus said, but Robert heard the uncertainty creeping in. Look, forget about Sophia for a minute. This is about the technology, about the company. Dad, you know this is solid. You've seen the numbers. Robert looked at his son, then at his wife, then at the bank statement still sitting on the table. $120,000. Their entire safety net. But Sarah needed surgery, and Marcus needed salvation. What about the house, he heard himself saying. Sarah's hand tightened on his. Robert, no. The house is worth $380, maybe $400 in this market. We take out a home equity loan. We can cover your surgery and help Marcus. Dad, I can't ask you to. You're not asking, I'm offering. Robert stood, walked to the filing cabinet in the corner where they kept all their important documents. But there are conditions. Marcus straightened. Anything. Robert pulled out a manila folder, then a pen. He started writing on a blank sheet of paper, his electrician's handwriting careful and precise. This is a loan, not a gift. Convertible to equity if needed. But a loan first, and I want quarterly reports on the company's finances. Full transparency. Of course, absolutely. Robert continued writing, adding a small clause at the bottom in handwriting that had gotten smaller over the years, harder to read without glasses. Something about family trust and immediate repayment terms under certain conditions. Marcus was focused on his phone, texting rapidly, probably to Sophia. And one more thing, Robert said, looking up at his son. That Dr. Volkov, what do you really know about her? Marcus shrugged. She came recommended by one of our early investors. Russian, brilliant, kind of mysterious, but her work is solid. Why? Robert glanced at Sarah, then back at Marcus. Just be careful who you trust, son. Sometimes the people closest to us are the ones who can hurt us the most. I know, Dad, I'm being careful. But as Robert signed his name to the papers that would mortgage their future, he couldn't shake the image of Elena Volkov's knowing smile, or the way she'd said Project Svet like she was lighting a fuse. The coffee had gone cold on the table. Outside, the neighbor's lawnmower had stopped, leaving only the sound of Sarah's carefully controlled breathing and the scratch of pen on paper, as Robert signed away everything they'd built, $500,000. Their house, their savings, their security, all riding on a technology that seemed too good to be true, and a son who might already be in over his head. There, Robert said, setting down the pen. It's done. Marcus grabbed his father in a fierce hug. You won't regret this, Dad. I promise. We're going to change the world. But as Robert held his son, he caught Sarah's eye over Marcus's shoulder. Her expression said what they both were thinking. They'd just changed their world, and there was no going back. 18 months. That's how long it took for $500,000 to transform into $5 million. The Millennium Tower's 47th floor buzzed with the kind of energy that only Silicon Valley success could generate. Champagne flutes clinking, venture capitalists congratulating themselves, and enough ego to power a small city. Robert stood near the floor-to-ceiling windows, his father's old vest hanging loose on his frame. He'd lost weight these past months, working 16-hour days alongside Marcus, sleeping in the office more nights than he cared to count. But tonight was supposed to make it all worth it. Tesla, $5 million. Their technology was about to change the world. You must be so proud, a young engineer said, approaching with 2 champagne glasses. Kid couldn't be older than 25, wearing sneakers that cost more than Robert's monthly mortgage payment. Yeah, proud, Robert managed, accepting the glass but not drinking. Something felt off. Had felt off all day, actually. Marcus had been avoiding eye contact. Sophia had been extra sweet, calling him Dad for the first time ever, and there were security guards he didn't recognize stationed by the elevators. Across the room, Sophia stood in a tight circle with her father, Alexander Chen, and another man Robert didn't recognize. Tall, thin, with the kind of aggressive haircut that screamed disruption and innovation. They kept glancing his way, quick looks that reminded Robert of vultures checking if the prey had stopped moving yet. Marcus's voice suddenly boomed through the speakers. He was standing at a makeshift stage near the north wall, microphone in hand, that billion-dollar smile plastered across his face. Can I have everyone's attention, please? Just for a moment? The room quieted. Robert set down his untouched champagne and moved closer to the stage. Sarah hadn't been able to come tonight, another bad day with her heart, but he'd promised to record Marcus's speech for her. First, I want to thank everyone for believing in Green Tech's vision, Marcus began, his voice carrying that practiced sincerity he'd learned at Stanford. When we started 18 months ago in my parents' garage, nobody could have imagined we'd be standing here with Tesla as our primary client. Polite applause rippled through the crowd. Robert noticed Sophia and Chen had moved closer to the stage, positioning themselves near the security guards. But success requires evolution, Marcus continued, and something in his tone made Robert's stomach drop. To reach our full potential, to achieve the IPO we're all working toward, Green Tech needs to evolve beyond its humble beginnings. We need fresh perspectives, cutting-edge thinking, and leadership that matches our ambitions. The room had gone dead quiet now. Robert felt eyes on him from every direction, which is why, effective immediately, we're restructuring our operations team to bring in new talent that can take us to the next level. Marcus still hadn't looked at him. Change is never easy, but it's necessary for growth. 2 security guards appeared at Robert's elbows. One of them, a kid who looked like he bench-pressed small cars for fun, held out an envelope. Mr. Mitchell, we need you to come with us. What is this? Robert didn't take the envelope, his voice carrying across the silent room. The guard pushed it into his hands anyway. Termination letter, sir. We've been instructed to escort you from the premises immediately. Robert tore open the envelope, his hands surprisingly steady. The letter was brief, clinical. Lack of formal qualifications, inability to adapt to modern business practices, impeding technological innovation. He looked up at Marcus, finally meeting his son's eyes across the room. You're firing me? At a party? In front of everyone? Marcus's mask slipped for just a second, something that might have been shame flickering across his features. Then Sophia was there, her hand on his arm, whispering in his ear, and the mask snapped back into place. It's just business, Dad, Marcus said into the microphone, the words echoing through the sound system. You'll understand. You always taught me to make the hard decisions. The security guard's hand closed around Robert's bicep. Sir, we need to go now. Get your hands off me, Robert said quietly, but with enough edge that the guard loosened his grip slightly. I can walk myself out. He started toward the elevator, then stopped. Oh, I'll need my personal laptop from my office. The second guard, older and clearly in charge, shook his head. All company property needs to stay here pending a full audit. It's my personal laptop. Bought it in 2015, before Green Tech even existed. Any devices that have been used for company business are being retained. Legal's orders. The guard's hand moved to his radio, a not-so-subtle threat. The elevator ride down felt like it took hours. 47 floors of humiliation, each ding marking another level of descent from the dream he'd helped build to the reality of what his son had become. When they reached the lobby, the guards walked him all the way to the street, standing in the doorway until he was across the sidewalk. Robert stood there for a moment, looking up at the tower stretching into the night sky. Somewhere up there, his son was probably giving another speech. Sophia was definitely toasting her victory, and his laptop with 30 years of personal research was being pillaged for anything valuable. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. They took more than they know. Check the dark web forums. J.S. Robert's heart nearly stopped. J.S. Jake Sullivan, the name Jake had taken when Robert and Sarah adopted him. But Jake had disappeared 10 years ago, leaving nothing but a note and a hole in their lives. How could he possibly? Another buzz, this time a link. Robert clicked it, and his phone's browser opened to a dark web forum he didn't even know how to access normally. At the top, a new post from someone called J Shadow. Green Tech Industries just made a fatal error. They stole proprietary research from a decorated electrical engineer. 30 years of work on adaptive solar grid technology, including AI predictive weather integration. This wasn't part of their patents. This was personal property, developed independently. The original owner has been terminated and humiliated. But here's what Marcus Mitchell doesn't know. His father's laptop contained only 40% of the research. The rest? That's a story for another day. Green Tech picked the wrong family to betray. J. Shadow Roberts' hands shook as he read the post again. Jake? It had to be Jake. The writing style, the protective anger, the hint of something bigger at play. His adopted son had been watching, somehow, from wherever he'd been hiding these 10 years. A taxi pulled up to the curb, and Robert climbed in, giving his home address to the driver. As they pulled away from the Millennium Tower, he caught a glimpse of something in the building's security camera feed displayed on the lobby monitors, a figure in a hoodie on the roof of the adjacent building, laptop open, aerial antenna extended. The figure raised one hand toward the camera, a mock salute Robert recognized from 100 childhood moments, then vanished into the shadows. Jake was alive. Jake was watching, and apparently, Jake had just declared war on Green Tech. Robert pulled out his phone again, opening the Notes app where he'd copied snippets of code over the years, fragments of the adaptive solar grid system that existed nowhere else but in his memory, and these hidden notes. Marcus thought he'd taken everything, but Marcus had forgotten the first rule Robert had taught him: always keep a backup, always have a plan B. And sometimes, just sometimes, the family you lose comes back right when you need them most. The call came at 11:43 p.m. Robert had been sitting in the dark living room, still wearing the same clothes from the party, when Sarah's scream from upstairs shattered the silence. He found her on the bathroom floor, clutching her chest, face gray as old newspaper. The pill bottle had rolled under the sink, tablets scattered like tiny white accusations across the tile. "Can't breathe," she gasped, her eyes wild with terror. The ambulance ride blurred past in a chaos of sirens and medical jargon. Terms like acute cardiac event and deteriorating ejection fraction floated over Robert's head, while he held Sarah's cold hand, watching the monitors trace the irregular rhythm of her failing heart. Dr. Kim met them in the cardiac unit, his usually optimistic face drawn tight. "Mr. Mitchell, we need to talk." They stood in the hallway while nurses worked on Sarah, the fluorescent lights making everything look sickly and unreal. The stress from tonight accelerated her condition significantly, Dr. Kim said, not sugarcoating anything. "We're looking at 6 months now, not 2 years. Maybe less if she has another event like this. The surgery needs to happen within that window. The total cost hasn't changed. 200,000, but we'll need 50,000 as a deposit within 30 days to schedule it. After that, he didn't finish. Didn't need to. Our insurance won't cover it. Pre-existing condition, out-of-network specialist required. Experimental procedure classification. Pick your excuse. I'm sorry, Robert. I've fought with them for months." Robert slumped against the wall, the weight of everything crushing down. No job, no savings, everything tied up in Green Tech. No insurance coverage, no options. "Can I see her? She's sedated now. Best thing you can do is go home, try to rest. She'll need you strong tomorrow." Robert drove home in a daze. the empty house feeling like a tomb when he walked through the door. He was pouring his third bourbon when the doorbell rang. At 2 a.m., nobody rings the doorbell with good news. Elena Volkov stood on his porch, looking nothing like the polished professional from the video calls. Her hair hung loose, silver streaks catching the porch light. She wore jeans and an old MIT sweatshirt, and for a moment, Robert saw the brilliant 20-year-old who'd argued physics with him in a classified Nevada laboratory. "Hello, Robert," she said, her accent softer than before. "May I come in? We have much to discuss." Against every instinct, he stepped aside. She moved through his house like she'd been there before, settling into Sarah's chair at the kitchen table. Robert remained standing, bourbon still in hand. "You remember me?" she said. It wasn't a question. "Alina Dmitrievna Volkov. Project Sweth. 1995. The words felt strange after so many years of forced silence. "You were supposed to be in Moscow. I was supposed to be many things. Instead, I've been here, watching, working on our old dream." She pulled out a tablet, fingers dancing across the screen. "Tell me, Robert, what percentage of Green Tech's core technology would you say belongs to your son? What game are you playing?" "No game, just mathematics." She turned the tablet toward him. Lines of code filled the screen, familiar patterns he recognized from decades ago. "The adaptive solar grid system we developed in Nevada. You took the power distribution algorithms. I kept the weather prediction models. We agreed to never develop them separately, remember? Too dangerous in the wrong hands." Robert set down his bourbon, leaning forward. "That's not possible. Marcus developed his system independently. Marcus developed 40% of a system. I provided another 30 through shell companies and anonymous contributions. And you, Robert?" She smiled sadly. "That laptop they stole tonight contained the final 30%. Together it makes Green Tech's miracle technology." The room spun slightly. "You're saying the entire company is built on our work? Stolen, repackaged, sold to Tesla." Elena pulled up emails, code commits, timestamp logs. "I have everything documented. Every line of code traceable to either you or me. Your son is brilliant, Robert, but he's also a thief, though I suspect he doesn't even know it." Robert sank into his chair. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because they betrayed you, and because Sarah is dying." Elena's eyes softened. "I kept tabs on you all these years. I know about her heart, about the surgery she needs. I also know you're too proud to accept charity. So I'm offering you something else. Partnership. We take back what's ours. It's too late. Marcus owns everything now." "Does he?" Elena pulled up another document. "Patent law is fascinating. If we can prove the technology was developed prior to Green Tech's incorporation, and that it was used without permission." She let the implication hang. Robert stood abruptly, walking to the small mirror hanging by the kitchen door. His reflection looked haggard, defeated. For a moment he saw his father's face. The day he'd lost his machine shop to a partner who'd embezzled everything. His father had never fought back, had accepted the loss, drunk himself to death within 2 years. "My father lost everything because he trusted the wrong person," Robert said to the reflection. "Spent the rest of his life as a victim. I swore I'd never—" He turned back to Elena. "But here I am, same story, different generation." "No," Elena said firmly. "Your father didn't have allies. He didn't have documentation. He didn't have a son who cared enough to send warnings." She slid a printed email across the table. Robert recognized the encryption signature immediately, the same one Jake had used as a teenager when he was trying to hide his online activities. "Dad, I know what Marcus did tonight. I've been watching for years, hoping I was wrong about him. But blood doesn't make family. Choice does. I chose to leave because I didn't want to be a burden. Now I'm choosing to come back because you need me. Check your secure email. I've sent you everything. Marcus transferring patents to Sophia's name. Chen's plan to force you out from day one. All of it. Time to teach them about real family. Your son who left still loves you. Your son who stayed never did. Jane." Robert's hands shook as he read it twice, 3 times. "Jake." After 10 years of silence, Jake was reaching out. "Your other boy," Elena said gently. "The adopted one. He's quite gifted. Jay Shadow is legendary in certain circles." "You know about Jake?" "I know he's been protecting you from the shadows, feeding me information, helping document everything." She stood gathering her tablet. "The question is, Robert, are you going to remain a victim, or are you going to become the architect of Marcus's education and consequences?" Robert looked at the mirror again. This time he didn't see his father's defeated face. He saw someone else, someone who'd spent 35 years building things, fixing things, making broken systems work. Someone who understood that sometimes you had to tear down before you could rebuild. "What do you need from me?" he asked, turning back to Elena. Everything. Every document, every memory, every piece of code you can remember. We're going to prove that green text technology is built on theft. We're going to get Sarah her surgery money, and we're going to teach your biological son what happens when you betray family. Robert walked to his father's old desk in the corner, pulling out a notebook he'd hidden there years ago. Inside, handwritten in pencil, were equations and algorithms that existed nowhere else in the world. "When do we start?" he asked. Elena smiled. Not the cold, professional smile from the video calls, but something warmer, more dangerous. "We already have. Jake's been laying groundwork for months. He always believed you'd need this contingency. Smart boy, your adopted son. Loyal too." As she headed for the door, Robert called after her. "Elena, why are you really doing this?" She paused, not looking back. "Because in 1995, a young Russian scientist fell in love with an American engineer who was too honorable to notice. Because life is short and getting shorter. And because some debts can only be paid by fighting beside someone when their world falls apart." The door closed softly behind her, leaving Robert alone with the ghost of his father, the echo of Jake's love, and the first spark of something that wasn't quite hope but was no longer despair. He opened his laptop and began to type. The news broke on a Tuesday morning through TechCrunch, while Robert sat in the hospital cafeteria, counting the $17 left in his wallet. Chen Ventures acquires controlling stake in Green Tech Solutions. The headline screamed from his phone. The article was brief but brutal. Alexander Chen had purchased 51% of the company for what sources called a fraction of its value. Marcus Mitchell would remain as VP of Operations. No mention of the former CEO title he'd held just yesterday. Robert's phone rang. "Marcus. Dad, I need to explain." "Your mother needs emergency surgery," Robert cut him off. 48 hours, the doctor says, or her heart could give out completely. Silence on the other end. "Then, I'm sorry about Mom, but $50,000, Marcus, just for the deposit. I'm not asking for the whole 200,000, just enough to keep her alive long enough for me to figure out the rest." "Dad, I can't just, the company's assets are frozen during the transition. Chen has control of everything now. What about your personal accounts? The bonuses you've been taking?" Marcus's voice turned cold, defensive. That's complicated. Sophia and I are going through some things. She's filed papers, divorce papers. She's claiming half of everything, and my lawyer says, your wife is divorcing you the same week her father buys your company." Robert laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You really don't see it, do you? They played you, son. They played you from the start. You don't understand the situation. I understand my wife is dying, and my son won't help save her. It's not about won't, it's about can't. This is a personal matter, Dad. It doesn't involve the company. I have to think about the shareholders, about—" Robert hung up. There was nothing left to say. An hour later, he stood outside a pawn shop in East Oakland, the kind of place with bars on the windows and a sign that said, "We buy gold," in 6 languages. Tony Russo's legitimate business front. Tony himself sat behind bulletproof glass, 300 pounds of former mob muscle gone soft around the edges but still dangerous in the eyes. He recognized Robert immediately. "Roberto Mitchell, haven't seen you since you fixed that electrical fire at my mother's place." "What, 15 years ago?" 17. "Your mom's still making that incredible lasagna?" "She passed 5 years back, but she never forgot what you did. Refused to let me charge you, even though that job would have cost anyone else 5 grand. Tony leaned forward. "So what brings you to my establishment? And don't tell me you're here to pawn that wedding ring you keep touching. I need 50,000. Today." Tony whistled low. "That's serious money. What's the collateral? My house is already mortgaged to the limit. My car's worth maybe 3,000. I've got nothing except my word and whatever that's worth to you. Your word's worth plenty. But 50 grand. Tony pulled out a calculator, punched numbers. "Standard rate is 20% monthly. That's 10,000 in interest every 30 days. You understand what you're getting into? My wife dies without this surgery." Tony pushed a button. The security door buzzed open. "Come to the back office." While Tony counted out cash from a safe that looked like it could survive a nuclear blast, Robert's phone buzzed. "Linda Park. Mr. Mitchell, I'm in the parking lot outside. I need to see you. It's urgent." 20 minutes later, they sat in Linda's Honda Civic outside the hospital. She looked exhausted, stress etched in every line of her face. "They fired me this morning. Said I was redundant now that Chen's people were taking over finance." She pulled out a USB drive. "But I've been preparing for this for months. Ever since Sophia started showing up to meetings she had no business attending." She plugged the drive into her laptop, files cascading across the screen. "Look at this." Email from Sophia to her father, dated 2 years ago before she even met Marcus. The Mitchell boy is perfect. Brilliant enough to build the company, stupid enough to trust me. We'll have everything within 3 years. Robert's stomach turned as he read. More emails followed. A careful orchestration of Marcus's destruction. Sophia pursuing him at conferences, Chen refusing early investment to create desperation, then swooping in as saviors. There's more, Linda said, clicking another folder. Marcus kept a digital diary, called it his founder's journal for the eventual biography. She turned the screen toward Robert, read this entry. The words hit like physical blows. Dad's getting in the way. His ancient methods, his blue-collar connections. It's embarrassing. Chen says we need fresh blood. Dad's had his time. The technology he keeps pushing is outdated. Just like him. Maybe it's time for him to retire. Force him out if necessary. Robert closed his eyes, each word a nail in the coffin of whatever relationship he'd thought he'd had with his son. And the worst part, Linda continued, look at these withdrawals. Marcus has been pulling money from company accounts for months. Shopping sprees for Sophia, jewelry, cars, trips to Paris, all while claiming the company needed more investment. Why are you showing me this? Because Marcus destroyed my career for his trophy wife. Because you're the only person who actually cared about the employees. And because, she hesitated, because James Carter and I have been talking. The lawyer Marcus fired? We think there's a way to fight back, but we need your help. Robert's phone vibrated. Another unknown number, but he recognized the encryption signature. The message was a video file. 40 seconds of Alexander Chen at what looked like the Tesla offices, speaking to someone off camera. The audio was crystal clear. Of course, the Mitchell boy doesn't realize he's just a placeholder. Once the patents are secured in Sophia's name and the technology is fully documented, we won't need him. Brilliant engineer, perhaps, but a terrible businessman. Easy to manipulate. Feed him some success. Stroke his ego, and he'll hand over everything thinking he's winning. The father was the real threat. Street smart, suspicious. Good thing the boy was eager to remove that obstacle himself. The message ended with text. Have 12 more hours of recordings. Chen, Sophia, their lawyers, everything admissible in court. Ammunition loaded and ready. Say when. J. Robert looked up to find Linda watching him. Who's helping you? Someone who remembers what family really means. He pocketed his phone. Linda, can you make copies of everything? Send it to James Carter? Already done. We've been building this case since the day they fired us. She grabbed his hand. Mr. Mitchell, I know things look dark right now, but Chen and Sophia just made a critical error. They got greedy. They took too much too fast. And they forgot that some of us remember loyalty. As Robert walked back into the hospital, 50,000 in cash weighing down his jacket. He thought about the chessboard that was revealing itself. Marcus thought he'd won by removing his father. Chen thought he'd won by taking the company. Sophia thought she'd won by stealing half of Marcus's assets, but none of them knew about Elena's documentation, about Linda's financial evidence, about James's legal expertise, and most importantly, none of them knew about Jake watching from the shadows, recording everything. The darkest hour, Robert's father used to say, is just before the dawn. As he filled out the paperwork for Sarah's surgery, Robert allowed himself a grim smile. Chen had called Marcus easy to manipulate. But manipulation was a game two could play, and Robert had something Chen didn't, a family that chose to stand by him, built not on blood or marriage certificates, but on loyalty and shared purpose. The dawn was coming, and when it arrived, Green Tech would learn what happened when you betrayed the wrong family. The Vladivostok Cafe hadn't changed in 28 years. Same cracked vinyl booths, same yellowed pictures of pre-Soviet Russia, same smell of black tea and cigarette smoke that had somehow survived California's smoking bans. Elena sat in the back corner, exactly where she'd waited in 1995 after Project Svet shut down. You look tired, Robert, she said as he slid into the opposite booth. My wife's in surgery. Been a long 48 hours. Sarah will be fine. She's stronger than you think. Elena pulled out an old laptop, its surface covered in faded Cyrillic stickers. But we need to move fast. Chen's people are already trying to reverse engineer the complete system. They have maybe 2 weeks before they realize something's missing. Missing? Protocol Zero. She turned the screen toward him. You remember what we called it? The dead man's switch? Robert's eyes widened. Back in 1995, paranoid about their research being weaponized, they'd built a backdoor into the core algorithm, not to steal or destroy, but to monitor. Every implementation would phone home, reporting its usage, modifications, energy output. That's been dormant for almost 30 years, Robert said. There's no way it still works? Oh, it works. I've been maintaining it, updating it, waiting. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. Every green tech panel installed in the last 18 months has our code at its heart. Marcus built on top of it. But the foundation? That's ours. She hit enter. The screen filled with data streams, thousands of installations across California, each one suddenly visible, trackable, controllable. We're not going to sabotage them, Elena said quickly, seeing Robert's expression. But this proves the technology predates green tech. Every panel is running code copyrighted in 1995 under both our names. That's theft of intellectual property on a massive scale. The cafe door chimed. Robert turned, expecting a customer, but froze at the figure walking toward them. Jake, 10 years older, beard covering the jaw Robert used to teach to shave. But those eyes, Sarah's favorite thing about their adopted son, hadn't changed. Still that mix of intelligence and wounded hope that had captured their hearts when he was 8. Hey, Dad, Jake said softly. Robert stood without thinking, and suddenly his son, his other son, his chosen son, was in his arms. Jake smelled like coffee and electronics, felt solid and real after a decade of ghost-like absence. You stupid kid, Robert whispered into Jake's shoulder. You stupid, wonderful kid. I'm sorry, Jake pulled back, eyes wet. I'm so sorry. I thought I was protecting you by leaving. The stuff I was getting into, the people I was connecting with online, I didn't want to bring danger to your door. You were 18, we were supposed to protect you. You did. You gave me everything, love, skills, a moral compass. That's why I could become who I am now. Jake pulled out a chair, his laptop already open. Jay Shadow isn't just a hacker, Dad. I'm a digital activist. I expose corruption, protect whistleblowers, and for the last 3 years I've been documenting everything happening at Green Tech. He turned his screen around. Folder after folder of recordings, documents, videos. Chen and Sophia's entire conspiracy. Marcus's gradual corruption. Your illegal termination. It's all here, all admissible in court. How long have you been watching? Since the day Marcus pitched you the company. I knew something felt wrong. Sophia pinged my radar immediately. Her digital footprint was too clean, too manufactured. So I started digging. The door chimed again. Linda Park entered, followed by James Carter carrying a thick manila folder. They'd all been invited, Robert realized. Jake had been orchestrating this. The gang's all here, James said, his lawyer's smile sharp as a blade. Now, should we discuss how we're going to destroy Chen and save Green Tech? They pulled tables together, creating a makeshift war room in the back of the Russian cafe. Igor, the owner, brought tea without being asked and posted himself by the door like a sentry. First, the good news, James began, spreading documents across the table. Robert, that clause you handwrote into the original loan agreement, the convertible option, it's ironclad. 500,000 converts to 45% equity at your discretion. Chen owns 51%, Linda added, pulling up spreadsheets on her tablet. You get 45. That leaves Marcus with barely 4%. He has no power anymore. But here's the beautiful part, James continued. Chen's purchase was contingent on complete ownership of all intellectual property. If we can prove the core technology was stolen, the sale becomes fraudulent, Elena finished. Contract void. Chen loses everything. Jake pulled up another screen. And I have the killing blow. Yesterday, Chen met with Department of Defense contractors. He's planning to weaponize the technology, use the weather prediction algorithm for military applications. That violates about 15 federal laws, and the original Project Svet agreements with both the U.S. and Russian governments. Robert sat back, overwhelmed. We're really doing this. We're doing more than that, Jake said. We're going to a board meeting tomorrow. Chen called it to officially install his people. But board meetings are open to all shareholders. And once you convert your loan to equity, you're the second largest shareholder. They won't let me in the building. They won't have a choice, James said. I'll be there with a court injunction if needed. Linda will be there with the financial evidence. Elena will present the technical proof. And Jake, he grinned. Jake will make sure the whole thing is broadcast live to every tech blog in the valley. Robert's phone buzzed. Sarah was out of surgery. Stable, the doctor wanted to see him. Go, Elena said. We'll handle the preparations. Tomorrow at 2 p.m. we take back what's yours. Robert rushed to the hospital, finding Sarah awake but weak in the recovery room. He was holding her hand, telling her everything would be okay, when Tony Russo walked in. The big man looked uncomfortable in the sterile hospital environment, fidgeting with a worn envelope. Tony, I'll have your first payment next week. Shut up and listen, Tony said, but his voice was gentle. 32 years ago, my boy Joey was working construction, touched a live wire some idiot hadn't marked. Would have died if an electrician hadn't been there, hadn't known exactly what to do. CPR, proper grounding, kept him alive till the paramedics came. Robert remembered. A routine job site inspection that had turned into a nightmare and then a miracle. That electrician refused payment, said saving a life wasn't something you put a price on. Joey's got 3 kids now, Roberto. 3 grandkids I wouldn't have if not for you. Tony placed the envelope on the bedside table. Your 50 grand's in there, plus another 150 to cover the rest of Sarah's surgery. Not a loan, a payment on a debt I can never fully repay. Tony, I can't. You can and you will. My mother, God rest her soul, she always said you were one of the good ones. Honest work for honest pay, never took advantage even when you could have. That's rare in this world. He moved toward the door, then paused. Besides, I hear you're about to own a big chunk of a tech company. Consider this an investment in someone I actually trust. After Tony left, Sarah squeezed Robert's hand weakly. Jake, he's really back? He's back, and he's been protecting us all along. And Marcus? Robert didn't know how to answer that. How do you tell your wife that one son had betrayed everything while another had sacrificed everything to protect them? Marcus made his choice, he finally said. Now he'll live with the consequences. Sarah's eyes, still foggy from anesthesia, found his. Don't destroy him, Robert. Teach him, but don't destroy him. I won't have to. He's already destroyed himself. We're just going to show him what he's lost. That night, Robert stood in his garage workshop, looking at the tools that had served him for 35 years. Tomorrow, he'd walk into a boardroom full of people who thought they were better than him, because they had MBAs and stock options. They thought they'd won because they'd taken his company, his technology, his son. They were wrong. He picked up his father's hammer, feeling its familiar weight. His father had lost everything because he'd fought alone. Robert had learned that lesson. Tomorrow, he wouldn't walk into that boardroom alone. He'd walk in with Elena, whose brilliance had been waiting decades for this moment. With Jake, whose love had never wavered even in absence. With Linda and James, whose loyalty had been earned through respect, not money. With Tony's blessing and Sarah's strength. Tomorrow, Chen would learn that there were some things money couldn't buy, and some families that weren't bound by blood. Tomorrow, the real Mitchell family would take back what was theirs. The hammer felt good in his hands, solid, real. Tomorrow, he'd use different tools, legal documents, and digital evidence instead of wire and pliers. But the principle was the same. You built with care, you fixed what was broken, and you protected what mattered. And sometimes, just sometimes, you got to tear down something rotten to its very foundations. The boardroom on the 47th floor had been designed to intimidate. Glass walls, chrome fixtures, a table that cost more than most people's cars. Alexander Chen sat at the head, surrounded by his hand-picked board members, each one a Silicon Valley shark in a $1,000 suit. Marcus sat halfway down the table, shrunk into himself, dark circles under his eyes telling the story of sleepless nights since Sophia had served him divorce papers, and disappeared with half his assets. At exactly 2 p.m., the glass doors opened. Robert Mitchell walked in first, wearing the same vest from the termination party, but carrying himself like he owned the place, which, technically, he did. 45% of it, anyway. James Carter followed, briefcase in hand, then Linda Park with her laptop, Elena Volkov with a stack of documents, and finally Jake, recording everything on his phone. What the hell is this? Chen stood, his composure cracking. Security. I wouldn't do that, James said calmly, placing a court injunction on the table. Mr. Mitchell is the second largest shareholder of Green Tech Solutions. He has every right to be here, as do his advisors. This is ambush. This is justice, Robert said, taking a seat directly across from Chen. Something you're about to become real familiar with. Jake moved to the presentation screen, his fingers dancing across his phone. Gentlemen, ladies, board members who probably don't know what you've gotten yourselves into, let me enlighten you. The screen lit up with video footage. Chen and Sophia in what looked like a private dining room, dated 2 years ago. The Mitchell boy is perfect. Sophia's voice filled the room. Brilliant enough to build the company. Stupid enough to trust me completely. Father, we'll own everything within 3 years, Chen's recorded voice responded. Make him fall in love with you. Men are always weaker when they think with their hearts instead of their heads. Marcus's face went white. That's not possible. Oh, it gets better, Jake said, swiping to the next video. This one was from just last week, Chen speaking to someone off-camera at Tesla headquarters. Of course, the Mitchell boy doesn't realize he's just a placeholder. Once the patents are secured in Sophia's name and the technology is fully documented, we won't need him. Brilliant engineer, perhaps, but a terrible businessman. Easy to manipulate. Turn it off, Chen snarled. We're just getting started, Elena said, standing to connect her laptop to the system. Let me show you something interesting about the technology you think you bought. The screen filled with code, timestamps dating back to 1995. This is the core algorithm that makes green tech solar panels work. Notice the copyright? Robert Mitchell and Elena Volkov filed with the U.S. Patent Office in 1995 as part of Project Svet. Every single panel green tech has produced uses this stolen code. That's impossible. Marcus developed. Marcus developed 40% of a system, Elena interrupted. I contributed 30% through shell companies, and Robert's personal laptop, which you illegally confiscated, contained the final 30%. Your entire company is built on theft. Linda took over, her spreadsheets replacing the code. And speaking of theft, let's discuss the $3.7 million that's been siphoned from company accounts into Sophia Chen's personal shopping fund. Jewelry, cars, vacations, all while claiming the company needed more investment. Chen's lawyers were frantically whispering to him, but Robert could see the fear creeping into the man's eyes. You can't prove any of this will hold up in court. Actually, Jake smiled, pulling up another file. We can, but that's the least of your problems, Mr. Chen. See, I've been tracking your financial transactions for years. That shell company in the Caymans, the one where you've been hiding income from the IRS, the FBI received a comprehensive package about it this morning. They should be arriving at your home in, he checked his phone, about 12 minutes. Chen lunged for his phone, but Jake was faster. Oh, and they've already frozen your accounts, all of them. Pending investigation for tax evasion, wire fraud, and violation of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. That deal you made with the Chinese military for the weather prediction technology, super illegal, by the way. The boardroom erupted in chaos. Board members were shouting. Lawyers were making calls, and in the middle of it all, Marcus sat frozen, staring at his father. Robert stood, his voice cutting through the noise. Enough! The room fell silent. Chen, you're done. The FBI will handle you. Sophia already ran. Singapore, I heard, with some cryptocurrency millionaire she's been seeing on the side. He watched that information hit Marcus like another blow. Board members, you have two choices. Vote to restructure the company under new leadership, or go down with Chen when the investigations expand to complicity in corporate fraud. One by one, hands raised in favor of restructuring. Good choice, Robert said. Effective immediately, I'm assuming the role of interim CEO. Dr. Elena Volkov will serve as CTO. Ms. Linda Park returns as CFO. Mr. James Carter is our new Chief Legal Officer. And Jake Turner, he looked at his adopted son with pride, will head our new cybersecurity division. What about me? Everyone turned to Marcus. He stood slowly, his designer suit wrinkled, his perfect hair disheveled. The golden boy who'd had everything and thrown it away. What about you? Robert asked. Marcus's composure finally shattered completely. His legs gave out and he dropped to his knees, tears streaming down his face. Dad, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was blind. I was stupid. I was stand up. Dad, please, stand up. Robert's voice was iron. Mitchells don't kneel. We face our consequences standing. Marcus struggled to his feet, wiping his face with shaking hands. I destroyed everything. I betrayed you. I betrayed Mom. I chose them over family. Yes, you did. And now you'll learn what you should have known from the start. Robert walked around the table, standing face to face with his biological son. Every dollar has to be earned. Every relationship has to be honored. Every success has to be built on a foundation of integrity. He pulled out a single sheet of paper. This is a job offer. Janitorial staff. Minimum wage. You'll clean these offices, these bathrooms, these floors. You'll learn what real work feels like. And maybe, just maybe, you'll remember what it means to be a Mitchell. Marcus looked at the paper, then at his father. You're offering me a janitor position at the company I founded, the company WE founded, with technology I developed, with money I provided, with trust you betrayed. Robert set the paper on the table. Take it or leave it, but this is the only offer you're getting. Marcus picked up the paper with trembling hands. I'll take it. Good. You start tomorrow, 6 a.m. sharp. Jake will show you where the supplies are kept. 6 months passed in a blur of restructuring, investigation, and rebuilding. Chen was indicted on 17 federal charges. His assets were frozen. His empire crumbled. The last anyone heard, he was trying to negotiate a plea deal from federal custody. Green Tech, under Robert's leadership and Elena's technical guidance, flourished. They open-sourced portions of the technology, making sustainable energy accessible to communities worldwide. The company's value tripled, but more importantly, it found its soul again. The Mitchell Foundation launched on a rainy Tuesday in November. An old warehouse in Oakland transformed into a training center, workshop, and community space. Veterans learning electrical work, refugees studying coding, former inmates building solar panels, all free, all funded by Green Tech's profits. Thanksgiving arrived with unusual warmth for late November. The Mitchell house smelled like turkey and pumpkin pie. Sarah's energy returned enough for her to cook her famous stuffing. She moved slowly but steadily, the successful surgery having bought her years, maybe decades. Jake arrived first, still uncomfortable in the house he'd fled a decade ago, but trying. Elena came next, carrying wine and speaking Russian on the phone to a cousin. Linda and James arrived together, a development that surprised no one who'd watched them work together these past months. And then Marcus walked in. Not the cocky CEO, not the broken man from the boardroom, but something in between. His hands were calloused now, his expensive clothes replaced with jeans and a work shirt. He carried a small package wrapped in brown paper. "I found this," he said quietly, handing it to Robert, "when I was cleaning out the old storage room." Robert unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a letter, yellowed with age, his own handwriting from 20 years ago. "Marcus, my son, if you're reading this, it means you've lost your way. I know because I can see it in you already, that hunger for success that might consume the goodness in your heart. I was the same at your age, but remember this, I will always love you. I will always wait for you to find your way back. The path home is never closed, no matter how far you wander. Work hard, fail honestly, and never forget that being a Mitchell isn't about what you achieve, it's about how you treat people along the way. I'm proud of you, even in your failures, especially in your failures, because that's when we learn who we really are. Love, Dad." Marcus's voice broke. You knew I'd screw up. I knew you were human," Robert corrected. "And humans make mistakes. The question is what we do after." Sarah called them all to dinner, and they gathered around the table, a strange family, bound not just by blood, but by choice, struggle, and redemption. Jake carved the turkey, having learned from YouTube videos what he'd missed in 10 years away. Elena and Sarah discussed recipes in a mix of English and Russian. Linda and James argued playfully about tax law. And Marcus, sitting quietly between his parents, smiled, a real smile, perhaps the first genuine expression he'd worn in years. 1 year later, the Mitchell workshop had grown from one warehouse to 3 locations across the Bay Area. Hundreds of students had graduated, finding jobs that paid living wages, building careers on real skills. Marcus stood in front of the newest class, no longer a janitor but a teaching assistant, sharing hard-won lessons about humility and honest work. He'd never be CEO again. That ambitious young man was gone, but he'd found something better, purpose without pretense, success without exploitation. Robert watched from the back of the room, Sarah's hand in his. Jake stood on his other side, now officially running a successful cybersecurity firm that partnered with the foundation. Elena had returned to pure research, developing new technologies that would be freely shared rather than hoarded. The sign above the door read, "Mitchell Foundation, where real skills meet real values," but Robert knew it meant something more. It was proof that family wasn't about blood or marriage certificates or legal documents. Family was about showing up when it mattered, fighting for each other when it was hard, and offering second chances when they were earned. "You did it," Sarah whispered. "You saved them all." "No," Robert said, watching Marcus help a struggling student understand electrical diagrams, the same way Robert had once taught him. "We saved each other." The late afternoon sun slanted through the windows, casting long shadows across the workshop floor. Somewhere, a machine hummed to life. Someone laughed. Tools clinked against metal. The sound of honest work, honest learning, honest redemption. Money could be lost. Companies could crumble. But this family forged in fire and choosing to stand together, this was forever. And in that moment, surrounded by the unlikely family he'd built from the ashes of betrayal, Robert Mitchell knew he was the richest man in the world.